Playing through any action RPG means cleaving your way through hordes of enemies as your godly build laughs with glee. But getting to that point is going to require some dying, and if you're playing Path of Exile 2, then there's a lot of dying involved. Trial and error, new skills, new gear, all of it are contributing to the many reasons that your character is hitting roadblock after roadblock. In this video today, I want to talk about how you can break through those blocks in your character progression so you can stop dying and start winning. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So with that being said, if you find yourself unable to progress, here's what you need to do. Take a look at your weapon first. That is going to be your biggest upgrade. Either craft one from a good blue item using orbs, or use the trade website to search for a cheap but substantial upgrade. Next, upgrade your armor, but this time don't just slap any crap item with higher defense on it. Specifically look for resistances as well as your class's preferred defense stat, as well as some additional HP, MP, any of those kind of defensive things. Look at your jewelry and make sure you're swapping these out to best suit the elements that you're dealing with in the maps you're struggling with the most. Swap around your skill gems and support gems to make sure you're using the most recent tier, or really go through them and make sure you're using the best support gems for your abilities. On that same note, respec a few steps of your passive tree or clean it up to better distribute to more defense or offense, whichever point is your block. You know, are you dying too much because you are taking too much damage, or are you dying too much because you're not doing enough? See how that all works. Lastly, you can always do the old faithful of over leveling and grinding on a previous map to brute force your way through a zone. But that's the too long didn't watch this entire video. I'm going to go into more details on how to actually hunt for the best items on the market with a lot of cool filters, as well as what items to actually look for. But if this is all you wanted to know, then I want to be respectful of your time, so feel free to shut the video down and get back to enjoying Path of Exile 2. You can also navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters about the timeline in the description. If you are heading out and this video did indeed help you, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Each one of those things helps me out in a huge way. Lastly, don't forget you can check me out on Twitch, where I stream this game and plenty of other ones every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, as well as, other stuff. But let's get started here on how to stop dying and start winning in Path of Exile 2. So before we break this video into each one of its constituent parts, let's talk about establishing what that block is. What is the shortcoming? How are you dying? What is the failing? And that's going to come down to a lot of things. Are you running out of life and thus dying? Are you running out of mana and you now are just getting completely mana locked? You can't use your abilities. Are you not doing enough damage and thusly you are dying? Are things just doing way too much damage to you? So again, you run out of health and you die. Establish what that block is, and one of the things that can help out in establishing what the block is taking a look at your equipment. Before we even break into all of the individual parts of that, it's easy to kind of figure this out by, I'm going to go ahead and take this staff, I'm going to pin this over here, I'm going to take my gloves, I'm going to pin this and bring it over here. So in the upper right corner we see my map. If I press tab on computer or whatever it is to bring the mini map over here, you can see what the monster level of every zone is. You can kind of take this monster level and compare it to your items. So your item has an item level and then a required level as per its stats, right? Like a level 37 requirement with 67 dex and 27 int. Now this isn't a hard and fast rule, but this gives you an indication when compared to your own character level where your item kind of stands in its usefulness in the long term of where it's going to be within your build or your whatever. Taking a look at my staff here, it's going to be all right. It's also a pretty goddamn good staff. I'm not really that worried about it. But if I look at these gloves, item level 32, the required level is 26. So they're a really low quality, quote unquote, item compared to what I could get at level 47. Because realistically, what you have to think about is anything that I'm going to get at 47 is just going to have much better affixes rolled across all of its prefixes and its suffixes. So getting this established for yourself is going to be crucial before we even dive into the rest of the video. And before we even talk too about the rest of the video, let me just tell you outright, everything in this video is meant to be a guideline, meant to be a kind of way to give you some sense of how to go in one direction. None of it is concrete. Do whatever the hell you want. You're playing this game how you want. I'm mainly just giving you tips and tricks to how to get over hurdles that are not like, if you don't use this skill, if you don't use this item, whatever it is, then your build's broken. All that crap is just drummed up your ass internet bullshit. play the game how you want and have fun with it. And like I'm going to conclude the video with, you can do this with pretty much every single weapon, item, blah, blah, blah in the game, short of certain things that are really kind of like not working at 100% right now, like Ancestral Spirit from the Warbringer totems. That's an example. But either way, you can accomplish it. Just we're going to show you how to do that next. So with all that being said, let's get started on the first portion of this, which is how to get a better weapon, because that's probably the entire rest of this video is almost entirely supplemental to this section, because your survivability is dictated more often than not based off of the amount of damage you can do. Can you clear the things out before they can kill you? And your weapon is going to fix 90% of your problems. The rest is, well, maybe 80-20. The rest is just kind of gravy. And I'm going to use that term many times in this video because I repeat things all the time. So my staff here is actually pretty good. But let's assume that it wasn't. Because what I want you to look at is all of your abilities. Falling Thunder, for example, converts 60% of physical damage to lightning damage. Now, depending on what class you're playing, that is going to be different per each class, the skills you're using, and what have you. So, for example, too, if I were to be playing a sorceress or I were to be playing a witch, a lot of my damage characteristics are going to scale off of different things. And we can get that indication by, let me just go ahead and grab one of these gems, by just taking a look at the skill real quick. Let's go ahead and click Elemental and just look at Frostbolt. So Frostbolt, deals cold damage. It gives me all the information that I kind of need, and it will say stuff like this will do X percentage of physical damage or what have you. In this case, it's a spell. So all of the damage that it's going to be doing is going to be coming from my spell damage. Spells are skills that use raw magic to destroy your enemies. Attacks are not spells. That's confusing what I just said, but it's important to know that attacks, which are usually linked to quarterstaff, oftentimes to your bow, which will have an attack. And I'm going to bring this up here to show you the difference. All your occult stuff, those will be your spells. If I can actually highlight a damn spell for once, there we go. And there's an important distinction between these two, because it's going to help you determine, do you need a better weapon with certain stats, or do you need a better weapon that has a certain spell damage stat, whatever it is. Attacks, that's a quarterstaff. That is a mace. That's a mace. That's probably a crossbow, depending on what you're using, which looks like they're all attacks. Attack, that's a bow. Attack are skills that directly use your equipped weapon to damage enemies. Spells are not attacks. Spells are skills that use raw magic to destroy your enemies. Meaning that if I want to increase the damage of an attack, I usually need to increase my physical damage first. This stat is what matters the most, because all the skills will scale off of it. Again, bringing back to Falling Thunder, it says converts 60% of physical damage to lightning damage. Charge Staff, Power Shockwave converts 80% of physical damage to lightning damage. 60% of physical damage to cold damage. So you see where I'm going with this. Physical damage is king if you're playing anything that uses an attack. Otherwise, you're focusing on spell damage. So let's go into our trade website and see how we can really fine tune this. So here is our trade website for those of you on mobile. I'll increase this one more step. There you go. This is, of course, just PoE. It's pathofexile.com. Trade 2 is the link, and I'll put that in the description below. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our item category to War Staff. And are you just starting off, or do you have an existing amount of money? Like, do you have orbs that you can trade with? That's going to determine how some of these filters go. But our character is a monk, so War Staff is what we'll use. If we were a sorceress, we would use a staff if we wanted a casting one. But War Staff is the melee version. For our stat filter, though, we're using an attack. So we're going to type in increase physical damage. That's really the only stat we care about. Increase to cold, fire, thunder, or lightning. All those things don't really matter as much because it all scales off of our physical damage. The rest is, well, gravy. You're just adding more damage into that physical damage's already post-converted value. And I'm going to go attack speed because I'm using a staff, a war staff, or whatever my character is, a monk. But if I was, again, playing a caster, I would go spell damage, right? You want to do things off of spell speed. Cast speed would be related to your spells, right? Projectile speed if I was using a bow and arrow, right? Or a crossbow. So those are my big stats that I like to personally look for when I am using, what is the attack speed? Well, according to, there we go. attack speed. Attack speed with quarter staff, attack speed doesn't matter. That's what I like to look at when I'm using my monk. So physical damage here, percentages. So those are some key things to put in. Then our level. My character is what? Whatever, 46. So let's just say minimum is 40. Let max like to do 1 or 2 levels above. Let's do 48. But here's where your, I don't know, your socioeconomic place comes into mind. Your buyout price. So you want to look for, let's just say, a exalted orb, orb of transmutation, or orb of augmentation. If you're higher in the levels, yeah, go through the bigger stuff that maybe divine orbs if you have that currency on tap. But this is probably for characters that are sub-level 65 that are trying to struggle through the beginning portions of the game. Augmentation and transmutation are very easy to get if you're brand new to the game. Exalted orbs, not going to be as easy. So let's just press exalted orb and let's press a maximum of 1. This makes it so that we're not being bombarded with the ones that'll show like 40 exalted orbs. I'm not going to spend that. I'm leveling up. And I'm going to press search. So it's going to give me all this list here, which is great and good and dandy. I'm going to press show filters again. And I'm going to also look, I can switch this by rarity. So again, let's assume that I was brand new to the game. And let me go ahead and put this to transmutation, a very easy resource to get. So I'm putting the rarity to rare because rares are better than magic items. And I'm going to put transmutation. Okay, there's none here. Let's go with augmentation. Oh, there's none there. I am unfortunately very high at that level range. Let's go ahead and just put this like 20. So it's easy to find those things because you can kind of put this in. Also, the economy has kind of shifted away from augmentation and more towards exalted. But my point remains, use this buyout price to fine tune the selections that you're getting so that you're not sitting there sifting through tons of crap. You're like, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. I can't afford that either. Set it to what you can afford and go from there. But before you even dive into this, press this, sort it by your DPS. Now I can see the highest DPS item of the 840 matched results. I don't need to sift through this. I can just know that the hierarchy is just going to go down from this location onward to give me an idea of what the best thing is. I don't need to really kind of split hairs here. And I don't also need to like kind of bookmark something and hope I know where it was. Just scroll up and find it pretty quickly. And it's also easy to determine too, the next thing is probably either going to be substantially better, like the example of 286 to, well, 284 is not that big of a difference, but as we scroll down, you'll see that these will jump around pretty substantially. Well, actually been pretty good. It's been a pretty good progression. It's been like 1 or 2 DPS drop per. Okay, here, 271 to 267. So you can see very quickly, oh, okay, this is my ceiling. I don't want to go below this. I'll stick up here. And then you just kind of look around and go, cool, this one fits the bill. Boom. Direct whisper. I'm done. I got my new weapon and I'm good. What I would tell you is try to find a weapon with 0 sockets in it or 2 sockets that are not filled. If they are filled, you want them to be filled with increased physical damage. Unless you want a very specific element and doing a very specific build, I don't recommend it because, like I said, it all converts off of your physical damage. That's how you get a good weapon active on your build. So try to find one with 0 sockets or 2, and then just socket it in yourself, like I did here. I added that already had it like this. I was like, cool, whatever. At least I'm doing lightning in my build anyway. This is going to be substantially good. I'll be fine. But that's how you build your weapon out. But how do you do this with gear? But you're dying too much because you just don't have the sustain to actually last. Well, that's taking a look at your armor and your gear. And we'll talk about jewelry in its own section because it's a little bit more modular. But looking really quickly here, my gloves are pretty terrible. We took a look at some of the rules we had discussed before, right? The level's 26. These are pretty low rolls on stuff. And that's another thing. I can hold down Alt to see what the rolls are on these things. And this gives me an idea of, you know what? This is pretty low. That's a low max energy roll at 25 out of 25 out of 30. This is a pretty mid-ground point for max life and a pretty low roll for max mana. So you can see, and this is a low roll for increased attack speed. So this item didn't roll very well. Everything at max can have 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. And eventually you can learn that certain things like attack speed will only roll with a suffix. So if you want to craft something out, you can go about doing that process. So what do? How do we get better gear? Well, the first thing is to determine what our primary defense stat is. That's either going to be armor, evasion, energy shield, or block, whichever combination of those it is. It's probably not going to be block unless you're playing a shield warrior or in future another class. But that's a big important portion to determine because we're going to search by that. We also need to look at our resistances. Your resistances are going to go down by roughly 10% every single time you go through a new act. So if you were just starting off, you don't have any penalties. But every time you go to a new act, look at that guy in the background, dude, shit, looking sick. You're going to get a 10% penalty to your resistances. So you need to stay ahead of that. And you stay ahead of that by adding it onto your gear. This has 16% cold and 12% fire. I put it in to have it in more fire onto the build. This has chaos resistance, which I neglect. But this doesn't have any resist. So you can see that this is actually not a great piece of armor. We should swap it off. It's actually now hindering me at this point. But again, here's really good cold resist. Here's really good fire resist. I can socket this to add more lightning resist or even more other of those resists we've already got. So focus on resists, focus on your character's chosen defense. In my case, it's evasion and energy shield. And then focus on maybe HP, mana, everything else. Well, like I said, is going to be gravy. It's just an additional nice to have. Increased rarity of enemies found. Great. Those are awesome. If you're looking for boots, you always want increased movement speed. Don't screw around with anything without increased movement speed. Just get yourself the increased movement speed on boots. That's a crucial point. Let's jump down to the trade site. So how do we do this? This is kind of tricky, right? And if you are on console, I am not 100% sure of how the trade site works. And I do not know if the trade site will be added into the game just natively. I hope it does for console players. I'm sure they're going to figure out some way to make this work. If you are a console player and know how to work the trade site, please let it be known in the comment section below because I do not know. So let's type in gloves here. We are again going to add a stat filter to our character. And we want it to be, for in this case, my character works on evasion and energy shield. There are two types of modifiers here. Flat modifiers plus evasion or plus 2 evasion rating with $1 or with a pound sign, your number sign, or percentage modifiers. We want percentage modifiers. Those are going to give us the best results on the item. And most often it'll also have flat modifiers of the 2 or 1 defense that you need. Like if you're playing a warrior, you would just simply type in armor. Well, armor in here, increase to armor. Boom, good to go. If you're playing a ranger, you probably just want evasion rating. Whatever it is, figure that out for your primary stat. And then we can add more into this. Let's say that our character's lacking in cold resist and fire resist. But you're like, well, I don't know. Like there's so many items out there. We're just going to put 1 in those fields. That allows us to at least populate entries that have both of those resists on them. That's going to be a tall order. Usually it's like 1 or 2 at this level of my character. But it's just my way of showing you in the future you can do that. And we'll put again 47 to 48 for our level requirements over here. And then since I'm looking for evasion and energy shield, we want to put a armor max of 0 here, an energy shield of 1, and an evasion of 1. And we want to set out our buy price here for our, let's just say what we can afford. And it's a max of 1 exalted orb right now. I'm not going to be breaking the bank. And we search and cool. We've got 17 results. And here's another thing that we can do just like we did with the weapon. I know that both of these stats are linked together. If the evasion rating is high, the energy shield is going to be high. So I'm going to click this button and go ahead and organize by energy shield. It's worth noting too that these stats at the bottom, if you hover over it, there's a little tooltip here that'll pop up and say, this is what it is at max quality. That's why these numbers don't reflect. 38 is not 46. At max quality, it can increase up to 46. It's the potential for it, more or less. But this now allows me just to quickly sift through this and go, cool, this hits the things that I want. And it's got good fire and cold resist. Fire and cold resist are cold resistance, or, sorry, not cold. Resistance in general are the thing that is going to bring your character home. If you take nothing from this section, take the fact that you need to put resists on your character. It's why you are dying more than anything outside of your damage. It's that your character's resists is getting them gibbed. They're just getting too many big chunks of damage that they would otherwise be able to mitigate through resists. So this is how I can go through this field and quickly set this up. For every single item in the game, this is going to be different. Or every single piece. Maybe for the chest, we want to focus on just chunky resists, or maybe more hit points. Or we want to focus on attack speed for our gloves, movement speed for our gauntlets, specific stats for helmets, because remember, some of this stuff will play into your passives. So this gives you an idea of how to suss this out for increasing your gear on your character. So we've gone over our weapons, we've gone over our armor. Maybe we're pretty good with all those things, but we still have some holes in our build. Well, that's where jewelry comes in. Jewelry is great because jewelry, more often than not, has implicits built into the type of gem that sits within the ring or the amulet. Well, they don't have a gem in the amulet, but still my point remains. Well, sometimes it does. This says Lazuli Ring. This is going to just give me max mana, no matter what. This is going to give me lightning resist, no matter what. And I have these that are white, right? They're normal. So I can actually craft these in when the situation calls for them. This is cast speed. This is emerald for accuracy. This is cold resist. This is lightning resist. And then I have down here some other rare or good magical ones that I can craft out to do other things for me. You know what? This is just an overall increase my elemental resist. That's a helpful little boon. Or, hey, you know what? I found a good amethyst ring. I'm suffering with chaos. I'm going to put some orbs into these and craft them up. I'm going to go ahead and go over here, currency. I've got an orb of alchemy. I'm going to turn a normal item into a rare with 4 modifiers. I can just pop that on here. Or I can go ahead and do it to another ring. Maybe take an existing ring and convert it. Fill up the holes in your resistances using your jewelry. It's the easiest way to do it, and it's what a lot of people recommend. I've got a lot of white amulets for the same reason. And just use these things to socket into the gaps that you have existing. This is probably the easiest way to fill resistance holes. And another thing attached to that is your charms. So put in any charm that matches. Are you taking tons of chaos damage from poison? Then you need this one. Grants immunity to poison. Use when you can become poison. Taking tons of fire damage? Use your fire charms. I have way too many. I should clean this up. Are you getting stunned too much? Are you getting lightning? Are you dealing with cold? Are you dealing with being frozen too much? Are you being slowed down? There's pretty much an answer for everything in this list of charms. This one's for ignite. There's one for bleeding. Yeah, there's one for bleeding. So figure out the ailment that you're suffering the most from that's hindering you, or the element, and use your charms, use your jewelry, swap them in to make sense for what your build is. So switching gears here, let's talk about your skill passives. Now, what I'm looking at is one of the old builds that I was using for my Warbringer. I've since completely rechanged a lot of this stuff. I've since changed a lot of this stuff. But what I noticed when I took a look at this with a fine-tooth comb, I actually had a lot of crap in this build. And this is something that you can do with your current skill passives. You can clean this up to make this work for you a little bit better. And we're going to take a look at this. So again, remember we talked about, we have to decide, is the issue a damage issue or is the issue a survivability issue? Is it a resource issue? Do I not have enough HP, or well, that's dying, right? But do I not have enough mana, whatever it is? And you can fill these patches using this passive tree. But before we do that, let's clean it up a little bit, right? So for one, let's go over here to this cluster. Very rarely are you ever going to pull everything from one cluster. In fact, you're probably going to pull from one side or the other side of a cluster, because usually clusters have one side focused towards one set of stats and another side focused towards another set of stats. So for example here, the bottom is all totem placement speed. I want that, so I'm going to keep it. But this left side is totem damage and totem damage. This right side is spell cast by totem have 4% increased cast speed and increased cast speed. I actually don't need those. That gives me 2 points right away. So that's an example where, you've overinvested in a cluster. And here's another one. And this is a previous thing that I've done. So these are my own mistakes that I made, that I'm pulling stuff out of it. So I took a look at this. My character's using a lot of totems, and I'm using those totems to do damage, not to tank for me. So this first part, okay, totem damage, perfect. Placement speed, that's only going to help me. But let's look at this. Okay, placement speed, damage. Okay, these things are all pretty good. But what's about this next one? Totem life. Well, I actually don't need that. What about this? This is elemental physical resistance on the totem itself, and it has physical damage reduction. Okay. And physical damage reduction and totem life. Okay, so I actually don't need these 4 at all, like these 5. So I can press this button and that button. That frees up, 5 more points. We have a total of 7 points we just added to our build by virtue of removing points we didn't need before. Now, this is going to be a negative number because I've overspent in this direction. my point remains here, even placement speed, I could really get rid of those two and be just fine because I have a bunch of placement speed elsewhere in this build. So fine-tooth comb, go through this. Do you really need all the things in a cluster you think you might need? Or for that matter, do you maybe only need a little bit of a cluster? Here's one. This gives me armor. That gives me 15 strength and defend with 200% of my armor against critical hits. These other portions are all great. Stun threshold, more armor, more armor, more armor, armor. But I really just want that big notable to be useful. Pretty much when you're looking at your passives, don't get lost in the minor passives, which are these little guys right here, right? Well, that's an attribute passive, but still, these little guys right here. Go for the notables and then forget the rest. You're pretty much just using it as a branch to get there. And then, of course, there's keystones, but that's neither here nor there. It's a reference to a really shitty beer. But again, you can see over here, this is examples of, all right, I just wanted this. Or this one over here, I want Lay Siege, 1% increased damage per 1% block. But I don't need this other stuff. I just need to get whatever I can to get to that. That's what I want to get. Or another good example would be, maybe you have two things that connect to the same location through stuff, and you actually don't even need it. Like, for example, here, this branch connects down over to this jewel socket, but so does this. Let's just remove those. Unless for whatever reason, this is a specific focus you want to go on, but that just saved me 2 points right there. And you can see that those little things open up builds for you. They connect paths in a more efficient way by giving you just extra points you previously didn't have. So now that we've cleaned up our passive tree, how do we fix this to serve ourselves better? And getting your passive tree to serve you is just a matter of seeing what the issue is. So let's go back to the beginning, right? Let's assume your character is not that far into the game. Maybe you're level like 12, 13, whatever it is. So if I started here for some melee damage, and melee damage, and melee, down here for more melee damage, well, I'm doing good damage, but I'm really just not surviving. And this is more melee damage, and this is area effect. Well, I do want this in my build, but do I need it right now? Let's say no, because like I said, my issue is survivability. So let's branch off to something that I already have connected. We could go this direction for more armor, right? Or this already brings me down to armor, 80% increased armor from equipped body armor, and this. I respec 3 points into 3 other points that drastically increase my survivability by playing into the primary stat that I'm trying to use. I didn't do anything crazy here. I just went, well, I'm kind of like not living, so this is what I did. For example, too, I was playing my monk, I was having mana issues, and my build was using this branch right here. I'm just going to press this button. It's going to send my thing through the roof. He was using this branch right here. Well, I realized that en route to the things I wanted, which are right here, well, I had these 3 abilities that would give me mana and help me out. I spec'd into them for 5 or 6 levels. I stopped having mana issues, and then I just unspec'd them. So your skill tree doesn't need to be a set in stone thing. Experiment, play around. Like I say so many times in this video, play the game however you want. Don't think you need to watch a guide video, a max roll guide, any one of the other people that make tons of really great, amazing guides and stick to it to the letter. Because your experience is going to be dictated upon what items you get. And those items are then going to dictate your survivability or your DPS. So maybe you need to adapt how your play style is, choosing some passives that you're eventually going to get rid of. You have the entire capability and agency to do that. So you have your passives work for you in the moment and then respec them to fit back into the build you had in mind. Now, another big note here is about your support gems. Remember, you get a lot of details by clicking this little arrow to give you an idea of a lot of what's going on. And I'll go into this in its own video, but when it comes to kind of determining what things make sense for your character, your support gems, everything, look at what the thing does. Click this thing open, take a look at it. Falling Thunder, well, it converts physical damage to lightning. Okay, well, I've got leverage here to increase my crit chance. I've got Shock Siphon, which recovers 4% of my energy shield when a supported skill deals killing blow to a shocked enemy. Well, this thing does shock stuff, so this kind of works for me. Let's take a look at another one, because that didn't have all the stuff I wanted to. There we go, Glacial Cascade. This does physical damage, converts it to cold, 60% of it. Well, how can I get more cold damage out of this? We can use support gems. Attack, gain 25% of damage as extra cold damage. This is what I was trying to talk about. Or we can have more supplementation to the ailment that it afflicts onto things, right? It does cold damage, so it builds freeze. I can now build freeze at a faster rate. So let's take a look at this little guy over here. I'm going to pull out the socket here that says cold infusion, and you can see that those numbers go down or they go up. So my average damage per second is 473. Pull it out, and now it's 438. Put it back in. My cold damage is 177 to 320 or 370. Now it's 131 to 248. So supplement into your gear little gems that make little bits of sense, little tiny things that tick you up a little bit. And maybe it's not even an elemental focused one. You know, if I'm looking at charge staff here, charge staff, it gives me the ability to, it turns my staff into a cool lightning staff, right? Well, this gives more shock. That's supplemental to the element that it does. But this makes everything else I do more damage when I kill something with shocked. If you're using something a lot, try to leverage the support gems to give them a little bit more oomph to other skills or spells that you've got. This one here makes it so that I can just give longer duration of this. That's a support gem I didn't think to actually put on here until I really sat down with a fine-tooth comb, opened up the support gem thing, unclicked recommended gems, and just went through this list and went, well, lasting shock does help, but I don't need the shock duration to help on the character. I need it to be more about what I can get from that shock. Okay, well, let's go with what I've got here, right? Innervate or conduction. It's just a more chance to shock rather than a better duration. Or, you know, there's lightning infusion. Attacks gain 25% of damage as extra lightning damage. We talked about that with cold infusion. Well, that's cool, but maybe I'm suffering from survivability. Well, life drain. Now recover 12% of life over 4 seconds when supported skills cull an enemy. Well, this thing doesn't cull things. Maybe we need to look at something else. Cool. Life tap. Skill mana now converts to life cost. That's what I was looking for. Shit. Where is it? Oh, vitality is on a different thing. Vitality. Here's a support gem that helps out with my survivability. Regenerate 1% of life per second while a supported skill is active. There are different ways to activate more defense or more offense within your build. I had life drain on another ability that was really great. And use these to kind of supplement what you need. Like I said, I was noticing I was really running out of my energy shield. Falling Thunder, for my build, the way I've got it built out, is I use Falling Thunder as kind of a way to execute a bunch of things that are frozen. So I get 50% additional crit on those frozen things, and I recover 4% of energy shield when a supported skill deals a killing blow to a shocked enemy. Since I'm using charged staff, my stuff's going to be charged up, and this has got a 100% chance to shock. These two things now work in conjunction with me. I'm doing more critical hits on them. I am recovering my energy shield because I'm guaranteed to shock them with my charged staff, which is always active. Big breath. So you see that you can get these support gems to feed into each other and contribute to lots of really awesome things, right? Do I have any more on here? Like, I've got a ton on my warrior like that. But use this stuff to your advantage. Freeze buildup helps out. Why does freeze buildup help out on my build? Because it applies an ailment. So Glacial Cascade, it gives me freeze buildup. Wave Frost, it almost always freezes things. And now when it does freeze them, it creates chilled ground below them. And I know I've got Ice Strike, which is going to freeze things for me too, if it doesn't outright kill them. But what does that all mean? Freezing is great and all. This all feeds into my Combat Frenzy. And then Combat Frenzy it's going to give me my charges. Gain a frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy no more than every 2.4 seconds. So those charges then allow me to use my charged staff or my Falling Thunder. Let your build work for itself by just kind of reading these things and these support gems and going, you know what? I'm using a lot of break armor. Let's use corrosion. Cool. Breaks armor equal to 80% of poison damage. Well, I'm not really actually doing a ton of poison damage. Well, let's look instead over at like armor explosion. Let me click a different one. There's another armor explosion or break. There we go. Armor explosion here, right? So supported skills trigger an explosion when they fully break an enemy's armor. Cool. I am breaking lots of armor. Demolisher. Cool. This is supported skills breaks 40% more armor. So find these things that work. Type in these little tiny keywords for you off the things that you're using to build out support gems that make your character actually able to do the critical damage it needs or survive through really crazy points of the game. And then, if all else fails, just simply brute force your way through the game. Just over level in a location. Take a look at the level of the monsters in that location. Match it, go above it, whatever it is. Just go to the previous one and just kill it a couple times. Go through the whole zone 1 or 2 times. You'll get some good gold. You'll get some good items. You'll get crafting materials to try and craft better items. Whatever it is, you can get things to sell on the trade post to then supply you with better items you can buy. There's a lot of benefits to regrinding previous maps to help you beat the ones you need to beat. But that's really the down and dirty of really how to get through portions of this game that are snagging you up. And I was having these problems with my warrior every time I'd go into a new map. And then it taught me that I need to stay ahead of the curve. I need to make sure that my weapon isn't too far behind. First and foremost, then I need to take a look at my gear. What things are really falling behind? You saw the gloves on that character that I was using right there. I definitely need to swap those out after I make this video. That's like a given. I'm now into the harder difficulties. I need to deal with that so that I don't fall behind in that. It's just something that's inadvertently weighing your character down. And you might not feel it for 2, 3, 4, 5 levels, but you're going to feel it at 6, 7, or 8 more levels. And when you feel it, you're going to get frustrated. When you get frustrated, you're just going to give up. So don't do that. Don't give up. This game's about trial and error. No one really knows how to do everything 100% right. The game's barely been out a whole entire month in early access. Everything's changing. Who gives a fuck if you don't do everything 100% the right way because something said, if you don't do it this way, you're wrong. That thing's wrong. Play the game however you want. Hopefully this video gave you instruction on how to play it without feeling like there's a metaphorical gun to your head to play a specific way. You can get anything to work in this game with just enough little tooling around with your gear, your weapon, your gems, your skill passives, your skills themselves, whatever it is, trial and error and see how it works. And if you have any good tips that have helped you out in the kind of trial and error process, go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.